Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is Straight Outta Boston here, aka the King of Boston, and today we're back for episode 62 of the Georgia State Dynasty here in NCAA Football 14. And you can see we get a contract extension offer from the Georgia State Panthers after our first 4 years. We're going to re-up with them for another, I believe, 5 after 4 pretty successful seasons with the Georgia State Panthers. So take a look at our final 2016 recruits, and you can see here are some of the positions that we could have been offered, including the head coach job at Texas, which would have been pretty cool. And I think some of these are coordinator jobs as well, but we would have had some pretty sweet offers. But anyway, take a look. Jeremy Johnson is deciding to declare for the draft. He is a projected 6th round pick, and I'm starting to go through this list, and I'm like, hell no. Jeremy, you are not leaving. So I go to him, and I'm taking a look at some of these guarantees. He has a very high persuasion chance, and I'm telling him that we're going to win the national title. All right, maybe not. We might not actually win the national title, but what's he going to do about it? It was enough for him to come and or for him to return for his senior season, and if we don't win the national title, he's gone anyway. So here are our transfer requests. We're going to accept all these guys because they're all pretty solid players, probably useful at some point. And we're ready for the final part of the recruiting phase of the offseason. We have to delegate 15,000 points into our last few recruits here that we're trying to get to commit to Georgia State after a pretty solid first season in the SEC. Obviously had a rough patch mid-season, but I think we finished with an 8-5 record, so I think we'll take that for your first year in the SEC, and hopefully we'll build off of that going into the future. I think we ended up switching around the conference alignment because a lot of you pointed out last year that despite Alabama being in the western part of the SEC and Georgia sort of being in the eastern part of the SEC, we actually had that flipped so that South Alabama was in the east and Georgia State was in the west. I do believe we flipped it around this year. You'll have to confirm that with Burns because we actually recorded this a while ago, and then obviously the video production went down for a little bit with Burns and I in this series. But anyway, so yeah, you'd have to ask him if he actually was able to do that. I don't quite remember, but I'm sure he brings it up in his off-season video, which is also coming out today. So anyway, we're looking to get Season 5 underway started soon. Like I said, hopefully we can build off of a successful Season 4. You know, goals, probably the biggest goal would be to win the SEC. I think that's attainable just based on how we did in our first year, and I think that even though it seems like we didn't lose a lot of key players, I think a lot of what we were building for was for year 5. I think year 4 was even a bit of a bridge year towards year 5 because a lot of our best players last year were juniors. Now they're going to be seniors, and I think we can do a lot this year. So this is a big year for the team coming up, but you can see we're just delegating or allocating our last couple thousand points here. Here's Luke Richardson, a quarterback who I think would be a long-term replacement for Johnson. We have a couple options behind Johnson like Gavin Edwards and Tony Blanks, but Luke Richardson I think would just be sort of a cut above the rest. And when we went after him originally, he was or we were already pretty high up on his board, so that's sort of why I started going after him. And then he so far has been pretty high on the school, so if he could come in, he'd be a scrambling quarterback. He would fit our offensive scheme pretty well. We really haven't had a fast quarterback since way back when, Ronnie Bell, who all he could do was pretty much run. But we finish off with the 21st best recruiting class in the nation. South Alabama gets the 3rd, so we'll have to look out for some of Burns' new players next year. And take a look at the training results. As you can see, Jeremy Johnson now a 99 overall. He leads the team. He's our first 99. I think he was our first 92, so anyway, you can see a lot of high overalls, and there's Gavin Edwards, the backup, who I think will be a sophomore this upcoming year. And so we're going to have some options at quarterback once Johnson leaves, but until then, we'll have to focus on Johnson's senior year, as well as a lot of other players' senior year. Like I said, I think it's Neal's junior year, Kylie Neal's, so we'll have him back. And anyway, it's going to be a good year, I'm thinking, and you can see some of the other progressions. But anyway, big jumps from most of the guys, which is good to see. Here are the roster cuts. I cut down 7 players. Usually my philosophy, or not philosophy, but sort of my strategy for cutting players is look at the weakest players from our deepest positions. Not necessarily just the weakest players, because a lot of the time those guys are needed for depth, but more so if we have like 7 defensive tackles and maybe one of them is actually in the mid-60s, I'm still likely to cut him just because we don't need that many playing that same position. So we get it down to 70 eventually. I think we end up cutting, I'm not actually sure who we end up cutting here, but looks like a couple freshmen maybe. And that is pretty much that. I think we cut one of these centers. I couldn't decide because I do like to keep the freshmen around too. Another thing is if you have a freshman and a junior that are both the same overall and play the same position, you're obviously going to favor the freshman because he has a higher chance of sort of long-term helping your team out. So here are our redshirts this year. I think we redshirted Walter Collins, who was an athlete we recruited, who we moved to quarterback because I think that was his highest or second highest rating. And same thing with the athletes and determining where they're going to play it. A lot of it has to do with what your team's strengths and weaknesses are. So maybe a guy's better at wide receiver but weak at safety, but your whole team is weak at safety. So you sort of have to try him out at safety and see what he can do for you there. But we end up, I believe, redshirting our freshman kicker as well, who we recruited to be Nate Black's replacement. But I'm not even sure if we're going to hold on to that because I think our kicking game was pretty bad last year, so could use some improvement on there. And here are here's a look at the first 29 or so guys that we add to our big board this year, going to the people who have second interest in our school. Obviously, more top players each year, which is good to see. Lots of athletes, a lot of skill positions, and obviously trying to attack positions of need. But anyway, we're looking to have a big recruiting class this year because I think we do have a lot of impact players graduating after the 2017 season. So it's going to be helpful to have a good recruiting class coming in to try and replace some of those senior leaders, like a Jeremy Johnson or, you know, other names that I'm not going to try and list off here off the top of my head, but it's been a while since I've played this series. So anyway, something that I did realize actually happened without me initially noticing it was I did post my 1000th video yesterday. It was Out of the Park Baseball 15, yesterday's episode. I think it was the off season, and it turned out to be my 1000th video. I knew I was sort of creeping up on the number, but I was unsure of exactly where I was in it, and it came up earlier than I thought. So anyway, thought that's pretty cool. I might do something special for that type of thing, but might be a little too late. But still, could do something to sort of thank everyone for being with me the last couple of years. So anyway, that's pretty much going to do it. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you did enjoy. Hope you're ready for Season 5, and so I'm out. Peace.